All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We officially made it to the middle of the week. Welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. We are here on the corner of East 23rd Street and Broadway. The Empire State Building is looking fantastic tonight. Now, I'm not sure why the Empire State Building is lit up the way it is, but I think it looks quite nice. We have the very iconic green on the bottom, the orangish sort of yellow color in the middle, then the white, and then at the very top I'm not sure if you guys could see that on the stream, but it's actually like a very bright yellow at the top. Anyway, everybody, it's a busy day on Wall Street. We got a huge amount of economic news out, a huge amount of economic data. We did have some unfortunate news coming out of the Los Angeles Public School District. They were hit by a massive ransomware attack. Now, it's interesting that this came up in the news because last week on the stream, we were talking heavily about cybersecurity. Obviously, we went into a deep dive in Palo Alto Networks' earnings report. We took a little bit of a look at Okta, which is a cybersecurity company that specializes in identity and access management. We talked about the growing total addressable market, and I described cybersecurity as a third emerging need in a business, right? So usually, generally speaking, I'll describe a product or a service as number one, a must-have product or a service, number two, a nice-to-have product or a service. But as we've been talking about last week on the stream, I think cybersecurity is carving out its own niche to a requirement. Okay, so I think we have products and services that are must-haves, nice-to-haves, or nice-to-haves, must-haves, and then requirements. And I think that as we push on into the 21st century, as these cybersecurity or cyber attacks and ransomware attacks and hacks become more prevalent, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of the cybersecurity spending absolutely go through the roof, not only in the private sector, but also the public sector, or SLED, as well. So we saw ransomware attackers hit the Los Angeles public school system over the weekend, and they said there were quote unquote significant disruptions to our system's infrastructure. Schools are being targeted, with universities such as University of California, San Francisco paying a $1.1 million ransom to hackers in 2020. 26 different school districts were hit by ransomware attacks so far in 2022 alone. And if we think back to last year, we had that very famous ransomware attack on JBS meat processing plant that shut down the entire plant for about a week. And then most notable, the Colonial Pipeline, which led to I think 6-day long shutdown, so very, very significant there. We're going to go into the stream by talking about some good news. So we see crude oil falling off a cliff. So crude oil is trading at about $82 a barrel, so that should provide some Americans relief at the pump. We'll also talk about the ISM, so the Institute for Supply Management Purchasing Managers Index, or the PMIs, held steady at about 52.8%. We'll talk about what that means. Zscaler, another cybersecurity company, will be reporting earnings tomorrow. Okay, so as we're talking about, unfortunately, the very unfortunate fact that the Los Angeles public school system got hit with a big attack, I think it's very important that we will just do a quick brief about Zscaler. So the ticker symbol is ZS. They will report after the bell tomorrow. We're going to be heading uptown. We're going to be heading uptown tonight. I want to check out the Bloomberg offices. We haven't been up there in a while, so it's going to be a long walk. Once again, we are here on East 23rd Street and Broadway. But my friends, that is the introduction for tonight's stream. Let's see who we have in the chat, my friend. We have Paul Greenwell is here. It says, hey Tom, Vinny Castellano, the one and only. Good to see you, Vinny. Thank you for joining from the one and only Staten Island. Tugba is here, says, hey. Lilla is here, says, hey Tom. Steph Wright says, hey from England, it's been a while. Yeah, Steph, thank you for joining tonight. Long time no see. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. Lila is here. I see Kim says, hey everybody. Sandra Nunez by the book is here. Sweet Country Living in Michigan is here. I see Mr. Clark says, hey there Judy. Welcome. Otto is here, says, hey Tom and everybody. Austin City Limits is here. Kim Junior Jersey Girl is here. Welcome Jersey Girl. Tucson says, good evening Tom from Tucson. Always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Sandra Dickinson says, good evening, Tom. How are you tonight? Sandra is joining us from Toronto, Canada, I believe. You know, it's a pretty nice night in New York. Obviously, the past 2 days in the city have been crazy. We've been experiencing a lot of wind, a lot of rain, a lot of craziness. So it's going to be nice to stream tonight when it is dry and rather warm, because we have been definitely toughing it out on the stream. As of late, I see my friend Abdullah here. I see my pal Mohammed. Good to see you, Mohammed. Martin says, hey Tom, did you see the wild holdup on the east side of New York? Thieves got away with 20 grand. I didn't see that. I did not see that. I did see some news that in the Bronx, there were some criminals that actually held up a USPS postal worker for some money, which is definitely unfortunate. You never want to see stuff like that going on in the city, but we have to just live our lives as normal, my friends. Not much I can do. Not much I can do. So we're looking at the very famous Flatiron Building as we stand on the corner of 5th Avenue and East 23rd Street. You'll notice all the scaffolding up. The scaffolding should be up for a couple more years here. You know, another thing we'll touch on really briefly, obviously, oftentimes we cover the Federal Reserve, so we talk about Fed Chair Jerome Powell, which we do actually have to cover today because the beige book, or the Federal Reserve beige book, came out today. We're going to touch on some things there, but tomorrow we are going to hear from our friends over at the ECB. So the European Central Bank will give clarity on the direction of monetary policy. Now, if you look at the futures market, there's about a 60% chance that there's going to be about a 75 basis point rate hike. But here's the funny thing, okay? If the ECB decides to raise interest rates by 75 basis points, it'll bring the benchmark up to 75 basis points. Because you have to understand, the vast majority of central banks over the world, I think the United States is a little bit of a standout here. They've been having, excuse me, I'm still battling some allergies here. They've been battling negative interest rates, or I shouldn't say battling. They've held interest rates near zero. Now, if you remember, at their last policy meeting, they raised interest rates by 50 basis points, and that brought the deposit facility rate to zero. So talk about some tightening there. We're raising interest rates all the way to zero. So I think it'll be, it'll be interesting to hear from the ECB, see what they have to say tomorrow. You know, I think consensus is that they're going to raise 75 basis points. That'll bring the benchmark to 75 basis points and emerge them out of the negative territory. So, hey, OF says ECB could go one and have it work out. Good to see you, OF. OF says gas is already shut off. Yeah, so an interesting thing about that, we could talk about that. Obviously, that is natural gas. Obviously, the Nord Stream pipeline is now shut off. And obviously, there was a big dog and pony show going on with that, right? Because the Russians were like, we need to do some repairs. We need to fix things. And now it's just sort of like, okay, it's going to be shut down indefinitely. And I think that Europe and Germany specifically has learned their lesson to never be too dependent on one particular country for your energy needs, especially a debatable dictatorship, but we won't get into that. But it's interesting. It was almost like sort of the, buy the rumor, sell the fact. I think there was a lot of notable figures on Wall Street that were predicting this already. And I think, even us in the chat, we pretty much kind of knew that there was a high possibility that the Russians may do that. So we actually saw natural gas come down a bit. Now, the interesting thing is that today's price action in crude So if you want to check out the crude oil futures contract, the most notable ticker that I follow is ticker symbol CL. Oh, these are really nice outdoor dining here. See, I think these are the only nice outdoor dining, I guess you could call them shelters, I guess. But if you check out ticker symbol CL, you know, crude oil absolutely got hammered. Talk about getting clocked down to about $82 a barrel, which is good news. I think that is actually very, very good news here. Okay, for a multifaceted reason. Number one, which is obvious, it should give Americans some much needed relief at the pump, right? Because there is a pretty high correlation between crude oil prices and, you know, regular gasoline prices. And number two, this is one of the many factors that the Federal Reserve wants to start seeing, so they can conclude that, okay, inflation is on its way down. It's not just a one-off. And as we saw in last CPI print, you know, the headline number actually came down a little bit, right? So the headline CPI number came down quite a bit. Now, obviously, the headline CPI print includes very volatile food and energy. So as we have gas prices coming down, you know, that always helps. But core CPI has been more sticky for reasons that we've discussed almost to the point of ad nauseum on the stream. And I think number one is obviously wage pressures or wage gains is being really, really bid up here. And I think number two is shelter prices, and shelter costs are really ramping. So we'll keep our eye on that. You know, this gelato place is always packed. It doesn't matter if it's a weekend, it doesn't matter if it's the weekday. This place is always packed, always has a line out the door. And I think the city did a really nice job with closing off Broadway to cars, so everybody could sort of relax after work and eat outside, things like that. So I think that's quite nice. This is on the corner of West 26th Street, by the way. Hey, I see RJ. This is Hola Tom from Colorado. Good to see you, RJ. Good to see you. Maria says, hey Tom, I'm joining you from São Paulo, Brazil. Good to see all of our Brazilian viewers. Thank you so much for joining. Austin city limits is very good news, helps inflation, utilities, costs of food, etc. Yeah, and I think especially since that, you know, we're headed in towards winter, things like that, it's good to see energy prices coming down a lot. OT is here. Hey, Bagels and Walks is here. I see Sally. Good to see you. Caleb says, hey Tom, what day did you film the New York City walk narration? I am not sure about that. I have to go back and look. I'm not sure the exact date. Hey, Junior says, read up on stagflation per last night's walk/chat and learned about the misery index. Well, Junior, thank you for joining last night's chat, my friend. Ken is here. Welcome. Sadie is like, hola from Hawaii. Good to see you, Sadie. Welcome, welcome. Bryant is joining us from North Dakota. 3T3 says, greetings from Florida. Good to see you. So we're going to push on upwards here, everybody. We are going to visit our pal, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, or former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, his office. We're not going to go in, obviously, but we haven't been to the Upper East Side in quite some time on the stream. So I think we'll push up through 34th Street, Herald Square. Maybe we'll cut over to Park Avenue and make our way all the way up to the Bloomberg offices. I think that would be interesting. James is like, hello from West Tennessee. Good to see you, James. Hope you're well. So this is the Smith restaurant, everybody. And while we are outside of the Smith on West 27th Street, you know, it was we got some pretty bad news coming out of California. Okay, so ransomware attackers hit the Los Angeles public school system over the weekend. And the Los Angeles public school system said that there were significant disruptions to their system's infrastructure. And this is the first of many, okay? And if you guys have been keyed in and tuned into the live stream last week, and I would say over the last 2 weeks, we've been really touching hard and hitting hard on cybersecurity, right? Because one of the things that we like to do on the streams, I always see this Maybach all the time. It's almost like it's my security almost. Maybe it is. You guys won't know. Just kidding. But we always like to try to identify emerging industry trends and industry themes on the streams, right? So a lot of the times people will be like, what are the best stocks to buy? Give me a name of a particular company. And very seldom do we do that. I think what's better is to actually drill down through the macro picture. So if we were to say, what industries or sectors of the economy do we think are going to grow or benefit going over the next 5 to 10 years? I think if we look at the trajectory of, unfortunately, where things are going, we've been seeing an increase in cyber attacks, in hacks, in ransomware attacks, more specifically via Emotet attacks. And if you guys don't know what Emotet is, it's sort of like those phishing emails, right? So the vast majority of these ransomware attacks are sort of played out, or they start from a simple phishing email where the email will look very similar to maybe your bosses or somebody within the corporate infrastructure. And they do a really good job. These hackers do a really good job. Maybe I shouldn't say they do a good job, but they're very talented in making these emails look like it comes from within your corporate infrastructure. And they'll prompt you to click on a URL link or to open a PDF link or something like that that's attached to the email. But when you do, it then in turn downloads malicious malware onto your computer, and then that can compromise an entire organization's infrastructure. And what they'll do from there is they'll lock down all of your critical infrastructure, and in order for that infrastructure to be unlocked or decrypted after it's encrypted, oftentimes they'll ask for some sort of a ransom, right? So they'll say, you need to pay us $1 million worth of Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. A lot of times now these hackers have been asking for Monero, and we'll sort of explain why Monero is a specific cryptocurrency that hackers tend to be more attracted to, more so than Bitcoin and things like that. But I think it happens more often than you think. And not to just solely capitalize on that industry trend to say, hackers are going to continue to do their thing, so we need to get long cybersecurity. I think even though that may sound a little bit harsh, but it's just the reality, and I think we need to live in it. As we have massive migrations to the cloud, right? We always talk about, I think that cloud adoption is still in the early innings. Many people and many analysts on Wall Street believe that the transition or the migration to the cloud is all but saturated. I would disagree, especially as it comes to big healthcare infrastructure. I think they're in the early innings of migrating to the cloud. And as you have more employees and more corporate infrastructure that is decentralized, and you have more endpoints out there, those are more vulnerabilities, so points of vulnerability. So we really saw a massive ramp up in these sort of cyber attacks targeting schools specifically during the pandemic. Now, why might we think that might be? Well, the obvious reason is as everybody went from in-person schooling to schooling from remote, I don't know. How many students do you think the California or the Los Angeles public school system manages? Would you say like maybe 500,000 kids or so? So think about 500,000 computers, tablets that has all of the personal information of these students that could potentially, be targeted for a phishing email or something like that. So I guess what I'm saying is the more endpoints there are, the more points of vulnerability for a network infrastructure to be compromised. And that's exactly what we saw over the weekend with the Los Angeles public school system being targeted by a massive ransomware attack. Now, they're not disclosing as of now just how bad it is. They've called in cybersecurity experts. I think the federal government is involved, so I'm not too sure how bad this is. Hopefully it's not. But it's very possible that they may be forced to pay millions of dollars here. It happened with the University of California San Francisco last year. They had to pay about $1.1 million to cyber hackers and groups that put a huge ransomware attack on the university. So I think it's something we need to be cognizant of. So as these attacks continue to play out, look for those particular cybersecurity companies that are the best capitalized. What are the cybersecurity companies out there that are publicly traded that have the best balance sheets, that are compounding out their earnings growth, right? And many of which we talk about on the streams. In my opinion, I think the leader in the space is Palo Alto Networks. But we'll talk more about it. Ooh, Wendy England says, hey Tom, they have about 640,000 students. Wow. So correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Los Angeles Public School District, or I should say the school system is maybe a more appropriate word. I believe they're a little bit smaller than New York. I think New York is number one. So the New York City public education system is probably the biggest. And then I think a close number two would be the Los Angeles. Hey, Denise Ebby says, I think it would wipe out all information, maybe, but it really depends on where those computers are hooked onto the grid per se, says Denise. Hey, Two Barnacles is here, says, I get fake emails claiming my Amazon account has been attempted to be accessed. Yeah, I get those all the time too. You know, so I'll give you guys a little bit of insight here. So whenever, and I don't know how these hackers do it, they're very, very sophisticated. So whenever I get a PO or a purchase order from a particular customer, so the way it works on large deals, let's say if, you know, they're gonna buy, 1,000 routers from me or something, like 1,000 Cradlepoint routers, I'll ask for a PO or a purchase order before I send them the invoice. And whenever I send them the invoice, I notice maybe a week or two after I send that particular customer the invoice, I'll get these phishing scam emails that look very, very similar to the email address of my customer, requesting that I revise something on the payment, or, could I go back in and revise the taxes or something like that, but I know it's a phishing scam. So if you fall for that and click on one of those links, you could potentially compromise your entire corporate infrastructure to be fully encrypted, in which case you'll maybe extorted for Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies. It's really bizarre and really wild, and I think that that's one of my main theses, that cybersecurity spending is going to balloon, not because companies and businesses want to spend on it, but because they have to, right? Or they won't be in business. So something to think about here. I see my very good friend Penelope. What is going on, Penelope? It's good to see you. Penelope's joining us from Tennessee. Team, we are now 32nd Street and Broadway. This is Korea Way. One of my favorite views of the Empire State Building here. Looks fantastic. Yeah, Bagels and Walks is, these hackers could take advantage of how harried everybody is. It's so sad. Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely horrible. Tony Lagus is here. Says, hey, my friend, how are you, mate? I am enjoying a lovely evening walk in Manhattan. Have a coffee and enjoy from Australia. Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Welcome to all of our Aussie viewers. Yeah, Steph writes, says, Tom, the pound is slumped against the dollar for the first time since 1985. Yeah, you're right. So that's been another thing we've been talking about on the streams, right? We have this extreme Dixie strength. So the Dixie is the dollar, and that's been wreaking havoc on emerging markets and putting a lot of pressure on corporate earnings as well. We actually just rolled through Q2 earnings season, and in almost every single conference call that we discussed on this stream, one of the main headwinds of a lot of these businesses is FX and foreign exchange rates are really impacting the top and the bottom line. So, and for some reason, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think that dollar strength is going to continue, my friends. Hey, Ethan R. is his favorite New York City neighborhood. I would say the upper west side, specifically between 72nd Street and 90th Street. That is my favorite particular neighborhood in New York by far. Junior says, FYI, the University of Surrey's Michael McGuire says cybercrime yields 1.5 trillion in revenue a year. Yeah, think about that, my friend. Think about that. You know, and so here's the last thing I'll say about cybersecurity. Now, a lot of you always ask me, because you guys know I'm in tech sales. I sell both software and hardware, mainly specifically into healthcare. But many of you will email me and say, you know, what do you think is the best particular sector of software sales to get into? And this is what I'll say. If I had to do it all over again, like let's say if I was just graduating college again, I'm 20 years old, I would be applying right now as an account executive at the top cybersecurity companies. And let me tell you why, okay? It's for two specific reasons, two very specific reasons. So, wow, everybody. But first, check out this beautiful view of the Empire. I mean, that looks, I mean, is that not like a 9.7 out of 10? I mean, this has to be like a 9.7, maybe a 9.8. But anyway, for two specific reasons, and here are those reasons. You always, if you're going to go into sales, right, especially if you want to sell software, you want to make sure you are going into an industry that has a massive total addressable market, or a TAM, but not only a massive TAM, a TAM that is massive and growing, okay? And this makes life a lot easier on the salesperson, because if you're calling a customer, right, or a prospect, I should say, it's more appropriate, and you're trying to sell them a piece of software that is maybe a nice to have, maybe it's you know, it's not a critical piece of software to run their day-to-day operations, but it's a nice to have, you know, you'll probably do really well during times of economic boom. But what you want to try to do, especially as you get out of college or you're making a career change, you want to make sure you insulate your environment to perform well during all types of economic conditions. And just because, let's say, GDP growth goes down a couple points, do you think that companies are going to say, oops, you know, our business is slowing down, that means we have to cut back on our cybersecurity spending? Or do you think they would say something else like, okay, we're going to, you know, maybe cancel a couple seats of our CRM software or something like that? I think you guys get the point. So you want to look to sell a product that's in high demand, that has a good product market fit, and that customers are now actively seeking out to put in their budget. Okay, I'll give you guys one last example here. So as I've moved my way up from small to medium business size sales now into enterprise sales, so selling into very large businesses, sometimes publicly traded, Fortune 500. Usually right around now, September and October is when businesses set their budgets for next year, so fiscal year 2023. And what I've been seeing in the marketplace is a lot of businesses are looking to cut costs whenever they can, but they're actually increasing their spending on their critical infrastructure. And whenever I have these conversations, the number one piece of critical infrastructure is obviously, you know, their server business, but number two or number one that they always bring up in conversation is cybersecurity spending, especially in the healthcare sector. So if I had to do it again, I would go to like a Palo Alto Networks, I would apply to a Zscaler, I would apply to a CrowdStrike. And if you really want to get vertical specific, if you want to break into public sector or SLED, right? So SLED stands for state and local governments in education. You know, think about what just happened, right? What did we just review on the stream? Massive ransomware attack hits the Los Angeles public school systems. Do you think that the Los Angeles public school system is going to now be increasing their spending on cybersecurity software or decreasing it? What do you think? So I think these are all interesting things to be thinking about and be cognizant of, especially if you're just looking to get into tech sales in general. You want to make sure you're going to be in a turbocharged market where spending is going to be consistent, if not increasing, just to give you the best odds for success. So that's what I'll say there. Hey, Zach Drew. So Zach, we are here outside of Macy's. We're checking out all these pigeons here. Borat is here, good to see you. Tatiana says green, blue, and yellow. Yeah, does anybody know why the Empire State Building is lit up the way it is? Looks quite nice though. I see Roy S, good to see you, Roy. Wendy England says, Tom, with the latest 75 basis point rate hike, the Bank of Canada is now 3.25. Yeah, so Wendy, I think the Canadians actually did it 100 basis points. They took it up a full percentage point. But tomorrow we're going to hear from the ECB. And the ECB is supposedly going to raise interest rates by 75 basis points, which will finally bring that key rate off of zero. This is one of my favorite buildings. It is One Vanderbilt, absolutely gorgeous tonight. Oh, Gregory's like, maybe it is for Brazil. Oh, Wendy England says today they did another 75 basis points. Copy that, Wendy England, 10-4, thank you for that. Hey, Cassidy says, hey Tom, used to work for the FDNY EMS in Manhattan. Miss it, but it got too expensive there. Well, Cassidy, thank you for your service, by the way. We are big supporters of the FDNY, NYPD, first responders in general. Massive amounts of respect. So thank you for all that you've done for the city. I appreciate it. Big Talk is here. Good to see you. Let's see what Big Talk has to say as we wait to cross the street. Big Talk says, I wish you could hear the rain there. Well, it was teeming raining last night. We were streaming in the rain and getting soaked. Yeah, but I can imagine. Supposedly, Southern Florida is getting pounded right now with rain. I'll have to check on my place in Miami in a minute. Hey, Michelle K says the color scheme on the Empire State Building is for Brazilian independence. Really? I didn't know that. Well, happy Brazilian Independence Day for all of our Brazilian viewers. You know, in that case, if I look at my YouTube analytics, we have about 12% of the audience, which is actually a pretty decently sized number. A lot of viewers from Brazil. So in that case, we're gonna have to cross the street and give you guys one more look at the Empire before we make our way to our pal Michael Bloomberg's office. Now, I think the Bloomberg building is rather unique. I think you guys are gonna enjoy it. So we'll check that out tonight as well. Hey, Edson is here. All right, so my Brazilian viewers here. This is my favorite angle. Well, one of my favorite angles of the Empire State Building. So I'd like to wish all of my Brazilian viewers a very happy Independence Day. And hopefully you're enjoying this fantastic view. Hey, Lucas Phillips is here. Good to see you, Lucas. You're the man as well. Big Talk says Ireland. Good to see you. I am also Irish as well. I'm about a 50-50. I guess that's very stereotypical of a Long Islander, right? G. Shep, good to see you. War Walker, how is everything over in the 305? Any rain? What's going on? Charles Hong says, hey Tom from DC. Charles, I actually may be in DC very soon. I may be in Washington, DC very soon for a healthcare conference. So I was supposed to, I think I told you guys, I was supposed to be in Rhode Island at a healthcare conference, but change your plans, let's just say that. We'll leave it at that. Hey, Ken Glass says, hey Tom, nice to see you getting a real estate license. I had mine 2 years now. Helps a lot since pulled money out of the market in November. Copy that, Ken. Ken, check out the Hayer building here. LOL Tips says, are there people that still wear masks in New York City? If I had to bet, I think there's probably at least one person that's wearing a mask here, I think. Jason D, good to see you. Hey, John, Ranchi is here, says, hello, Tom from Orlando, Florida. Love Orlando, by the way. Good to see you, John. John says, Tom, what do you think of universal basic income? So not to get the stream too far off the rails tonight, but I will answer that question for you. And I think that I've answered this before, but I think many of you might be rather surprised with my answer here. I agree with it with contingencies. Whoa. Everybody calm down. It's going to be all right. And I'll tell you why. Here's my position. I'll sum it up very short and sweet. I've been working in the technology field for about 7+ years now, selling a lot of software that automates very redundant and laborious tasks. And I have many friends in the technology field as well. And I could sense the writing on the wall that as we push forward into the age of automation, artificial intelligence, and the like, that there's going to be a lot of jobs, specifically in the manufacturing sector, that are going to be automated away. And that's actually a good thing. But I think it's important for us as a society, I'll just talk about the United States for a minute, to be prepared for that and to come to terms with that. Now, it's never appropriate to purposely stifle innovation because people are going to lose their jobs. That's actually not the correct answer. The appropriate answer is to provide either subsidy or training programs or massive capital injections into retooling and retraining your workforce for a new environment. So I'll give you a clear example. Oftentimes on the stream we'll talk about how COVID-19 has really exposed supply chain weaknesses throughout the globe. And more specifically, we're starting to see this emerging trend of domesticating the supply chain. So we're seeing with Apple, a lot of manufacturing jobs are returning back to the United States because, in the case of Apple, let's just use that as an example. They've been having significant delays in the production of some of their iPad products because a lot of their plants over in China are being shut down due to zero COVID policy and the like. You can't really run a business that way, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and debate COVID, but the point is, if you domesticate your supply chain, now you're in control of it. Now, here's the issue. Businesses are going to have to come to terms with the fact that employees cost a hell of a lot more here than they do abroad. So as we've been talking about on the streams, if you've been noticing a trend, if you look at R&D spend, right? And R&D stands for research and development across Amazon, all of these different, semiconductor manufacturers, the chip fabricators. There's been a record high spending in research and development when it's specifically in relation to robotics and automation. So these manufacturing jobs that are going to be coming back to the United States, they may only be here for like 5 to 7 years. And a lot of these jobs are going to be automated by robots. And I think that's actually a good thing. That's going to drive prices of a lot of this goods and services down. It's going to increase operational efficiencies, but for every job that's destroyed, roughly, by robotics and automation, there's probably going to be about 2 or 3 jobs created. However, here's the kicker. It's going to require a completely new set of skills. Completely new. So you're going to need to be very geared and in tune with artificial intelligence, computer science, learning how to code, learning how to operate this machinery, repair it. So to sort of go full circle here, what do I think about universal basic income? I do agree with providing specific Americans that currently hold positions in industries that are very ripe for disruption with some sort of stipend or education program to supplement their success with educating them, retooling them to assimilate them into a new modern workforce and economy. So I know that was long, but that's sort of my take on universal basic income. And you guys know me, I tend to be a pure, free markets guy. I tend to be a conservative capitalist. But when it comes to UBI, I think we could do it in an appropriate way as long as it's used to provide Americans a way to retool and retrain their skill sets. So hopefully that makes sense. I think I got to get some moderators in the chat. Hey, Taxi Cab is here. It says, hey Tom, did you watch the September Apple event? Ooh, dude, I didn't. But I saw some things on Twitter that so does anybody know what the material difference is between the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 14? Anybody know the material differences? I'm probably gonna have to watch the event when I get on the train tonight, but what do you guys think? Anything good coming out of the Apple event? I didn't get a chance to see it, unfortunately. I was totally crushed with work. But anyway. Hey, Kilo Whiskey Juliet is here. Says, hello there, Tom. Good to see you, Kilo. We are walking all the way to the Upper East Side tonight. Good to see you, my friend. We're standing outside of Joe's Pizza. Yeah, super 6 speed, says Tom. I stopped counting at iPhone 5. Hilarious. Omar, or Amar, says, hi Tom, appreciate your tours in New York City and Miami, bro. Loving it from Trinidad and Tobago. Hey, love that. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Oh, GN Workstation says, no more Mini. Really? So that's a little bit of a bummer, and I'll tell you why. Because we're actually streaming on an iPhone 13 Mini. So I'll tell you guys a quick story. We used to stream on, I think, the iPhone 11 Plus, if that was a thing. My phone was massive. I had a massive phone, and we would still be streaming on that phone, but I dropped it, and the only thing that broke on the phone was the camera. The only thing I use for streaming. Anyway, long story short, I go to the Apple store. I was talking to the guy at the Genius Experts there, and I was going to get the iPhone 13 Pro, the same size as the iPhone 11, and he's like, well, check this one out, the Mini. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is fantastic. It fits in my pocket. It's very, I think it's more optimal for just like regular work. I don't know, I like a smaller phone, so that's actually kind of a bummer that there's no iPhone 14 Mini, but I think I'm gonna stick with my iPhone 13 Mini for probably the foreseeable future. But I don't know, I like a smaller screen size. Maybe that's just me. Wow, Mike C says the iPhone 14 supposedly gets rid of the need for a gimbal. Really? Mike, that would be insane, dude. We may have to try that out. If that's true, I may have to try that out just for fun on the streams. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far, hit the like button and click the subscribe button if you're new. We usually do these live streams around 8:30 p.m. Eastern time from New York, about 5 days a week. So we're approaching Bryant Park, and if you look right here, this is actually outside of the Salesforce Tower here. So this big green building is the Salesforce Tower, obviously Mark Benioff's headquarters right here in New York. Beautiful building. So Dusty says, Tom, do you use a gimbal or is it handheld? So I use a gimbal. I think if I used handheld, you guys would be getting some motion sickness here. I don't want to do that to you guys. Steph writes, says the Apple Watch now has a crushed car feature. What? Let me see. Now has a crashed car feature. It'll detect sudden force and call 911. That's actually a really good feature there. You know, I did see some updates on some of the pricing on the Apple products. I think the Apple Watch is priced at what, $799 now. So it's going to undercut Garmin, I think. I think I told you guys, a lot of you were actually pushing me in the chat to get an Apple Watch. The only reason why I don't get an Apple Watch is because I don't trust myself with it. I am so bad with losing things. I know I would lose that Apple Watch. So until I can be a little bit more responsible with stuff, you know, we'll hold off. All right, team, we made it. It is West 41st Street, Avenue of the Americas, 6th Avenue, one of my favorites. Right outside Bryant Park, looking beautiful. And we have a very nice view of the One Vanderbilt building, all lit up in blue. So Steph writes, is Apple be adding to their trillions? So another thing we have to watch, everybody, as it relates to the Apple or an Apple stock, I think Apple is going to go gangbusters here with investing into their advertising unit. But we're going to make an entire stream about that as to why I am bullish on advertising. Hey, Ken Glass says, Tom, please do a skateboard stream someday. I'm remembering the old skateboard streams. Dude, we're going to have to do it. I promise we will. But the real reason why I'm not doing the skateboard streams anymore is because when we used to do the skateboard streams, there was like no cars on the road. Now it's like, you know, Grand Theft Auto out here. People clanging and banging all over the city, driving crazy. You know, when we would do the skateboarding streams, I'd be the only one on the road. Now it's, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Hey, Lil Yellis here says Apple Watches are cookie cutter. Good to see you, my friend. So really quick, I want to touch on the Institute for Supply Management Purchasing Managers Index, or the PMI numbers that came out. Now, today we got the services index out, but I want to talk about the manufacturing numbers for just a bit here. Check out this view of the Empire. Another really good view. So the manufacturing PMI came in at about 52.8% in August, with new orders and employment expanding, prices increasing at a slower rate, and exports contracting while imports are growing, which is not what you want to see, right? We're already running a pretty bad deficit, but I want you guys to pay attention to the correlation here between the broader indice. And when I'm talking about the broader based, ooh, this nice Tesla here. The broader based stock market indices like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, usually the PMIs, or the Purchasing Managers Index for the manufacturing sector, is what you call a leading indicator for the market. So this is what I'm talking about here. So check out this correlation. And if you want to follow along on the stream, if you type !PMI in the chat, once again, !PMI. The Nightbot will drop the most recent PMI report from the Institute for Supply Management. Maybe we'll cross the street here. And what I want you to do is I want you to look back to where the PMI reading was in October of 2021. Okay, and the reason why I'm pointing out October of 2021 specifically is because in October of 2021, that is when the market started to become a little bit volatile and wobbly here, right? So obviously we put in a top on the S&P 500 on January 4th of 2022. That was the top in the S&P, okay? That was 4,805. And then from there, the S&P went on to decline over 1,000 points, 1,170 points to be exact, or about 25%. So if you look at the PMI numbers, I'm trying to get away from this bike guy. I'll wait till he goes. So if you look at the PMI numbers in October of 2021, we had a reading of about 60.8%. Okay, then if you go to November of 2021, it went down to 60.6%. December, right before the new year and right before the market started to roll over, we reached about 58.8%. So what do you notice there? As the PMIs are starting to roll over, so goes the market. Okay, and now as of August, we had a reading of 52.8. So we had an absolute crash in the PMI numbers all the way from 60 down, all the way down to 52. And we've been covering this for well over a year now on the streams, okay? And this is why I think it's critical that whenever we're trying to predict where markets are going to go, it's important to look at leading economic indicators. And the ISM manufacturing numbers, in my opinion, are one of the best leading indicators that you could possibly look at, okay? So here's the good news. Now that we talked about the bad news, here's some good news. This is the only month in over a year. This is the Bank of America Tower, by the way. This is the first month in over a year that the PMI numbers did not decelerate or go down. We actually matched the exact reading that we had last month. So is this a potential scenario here where the PMIs are trying to bottom out and maybe actually have an upward trajectory? And if so, there's a pretty good correlation that the market should follow through and turn around with that. Now, one data point is not enough to confirm a trend, but I think we can mark this down as a potential start to an emerging trend, okay? So we're gonna talk about this a little bit more in the Behind the Street newsletter. So the QR code that is on your screen, if you scan that QR code and punch in your email, you will receive the Behind the Street newsletter, which is a free financial newsletter that I write for the group, usually every other Tuesday, where we talk about the US equity market, emerging markets, fixed income, and the like. So if you're interested in a lot of the stuff we talk about on the streams and you want to read that, feel free to scan the QR code, punch in your email. I'm going to do a little bit more of an in-depth view. I'm going to show you guys some models that I made in Excel that shows the trajectory of those PMIs and how it relates to the business cycle itself. Hey, Steph Wright is here. What's up? Bryant Forrest is here. Hey, Mohammed says, hey, Tom. Thank you for this live stream. Well, thank you, Mohammed. I appreciate that. We're headed over to Grand Central Station. We haven't been to Grand Central Station in a long, long time on the streams. Lots of garbage on the street tonight, I've noticed. Hey, Marilyn is loving the tours. Thank you. Appreciate it, Marilyn. Thank you for being here. Joan is here. Welcome. LOL Tips says, are you a finance major? I did not. I did not major in finance. I was actually a criminal justice major back in my college days. I majored in criminal justice with a minor in economics. I did take some forensic accounting classes, but wow, this is a really good shot of the One Vanderbilt building. Has anybody in the chat been to the observation deck at One Vanderbilt? What do you guys like better, the beautiful garbage trash here, or One Vandy? What do you think? What's more aesthetically appealing to you? Hey, Gene is here. It says, hey, Tom, you see our Bank of Canada raised interest rates by only 75 basis points today. Yeah, well, I think Wendy England, I know because Wendy England told us in the chat. One Vandy, Kilo Whiskey Julie. Trash 10 out of 10. Too funny. You guys are funny. Yeah, MN says, I understand there are balloons at the One Vanderbilt. I don't know if they're balloons. I saw that on like a lot of videos. I'm not too sure what they are. I guess you could call them balloons, yeah. Hey, Ann Choi says Google Chrome users urged to update the browser ASAP because of hackers. Wow. You know, I think that goes in really well with our topic of discussion on tonight's stream, because cybersecurity, or a lot of these ransomware attacks and cyber attacks in general, have just been getting out of control. You know, early in the stream we were talking about the ransomware attackers that hit Los Angeles public school system over the weekend. Now, they're not going to let us know right now how bad the damage is, but usually they like to keep all that stuff hush-hush because different interactive viewing rooms. I'll probably have to bite the bullet one day and go up there and see what it's all about. So this is 5th Avenue, everybody. We are walking across 5th, and we are going to head to Grand Central Station. So I'll ask you guys in the chat, should we take a quick lap around the inside of Grand Central? What do you think? Let me know. And that right there is the Chrysler Building, looking great. Hey, NMB045 says they're just plastic balloons. I was there in June. So NMB045, what do you think about it? Would you recommend anybody in the chat go check out One Vanderbilt, the observation deck? Love to know your thoughts. Sunshine After Rain is here. Good to see you, Sunshine. Welcome. NE says, an interesting cybersecurity company I've been looking to investing into knowing is ticker symbol KNBE. Interesting, I'll have to check that out. Well, Zscaler is reporting earnings tomorrow. This is Berkeley College. And Zscaler is one that I've been watching for a long time. So the main cybersecurity companies on my watch list, now this isn't a recommend to buy anything, but I think these are the particular companies that I think we should be watching very closely as it relates to the cybersecurity sector. Obviously, my number one is Palo Alto Networks, ticker symbol PANW. Then I would say it's probably a tie between Zscaler and CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike really specializes in the endpoint cybersecurity, so securing a lot of the endpoints out there. And my bull thesis on that is, think about the trajectory of mobile devices, of tablets, of smartphones, of computers, laptops, desktops over the next 5 to 10 years. Do we think a lot of those devices are going to continue to grow, or do you think they're going to continue to shrink? Well, I think that we're on a trajectory where the average person will probably have about 4 to 5 connected devices personally. That is what I assume. I think the average American at one point will have, about 4 to 5 connected devices. So when we think about endpoint cybersecurity, let's say if you have a mobile device, like a mobile phone, so you could secure that and lock it down with some sort of an MDM. A lot lesser known cybersecurity companies that have recently, done their funding rounds. Could be like a Scale Fusion or a Code Proof or something like that. Hey, Sunset Blue. Good to see you. Yeah, Ari's like, people have become the devices. That's funny. David Individuals here says, Tom, China imports and exports are way down. Yeah, so what do we think that means, David? Because we were just talking about the ISM PMI numbers, right? Today we got the services PMI out. Earlier in the week we got the manufacturing PMI out. And I think that's one of the main reasons, to David's point, why a lot of American companies are starting to domesticate the supply chain, is because nobody could really function on a zero COVID policy. Now, I'm not just blaming China specifically. I think that the pandemic opened a lot of eyes to say that, look, if we're not in control of things, it's hard to play by 50 million different rules. We'd rather just pick one rule and roll with it and sort of go with that. But Sunset Blue is here. Good to see you, Sunset Blue, my friend Fred X. Fred X, good to see you. We're actually going to take a quick look inside Grand Central Station. Now, I don't even remember the last time we were in Grand Central on the stream. It could have been maybe over a month ago now. What do you guys think? When was the last time we were inside Grand Central on the stream? It's been so nice out. Very seldom we've actually been in places. Although I did show you guys the new Penn Station last night. How'd you guys think of that? I think the city did a really good job. The new Penn Station is actually looking quite nice. So, all right, inside voices. All right, guys. This is Grand Central Station. Hey, Daniel Log is here. Good to see you. Hey, Blues Writer says, hey, I just finished my 2021 income taxes tonight. You know, I actually have to do my quarterly taxes. I actually have to get on a call with my CPA tomorrow and figure that out. I have the great privilege of doing quarterlies, so. Hey, Anchovy is here, says, wow, cool ceiling. Yeah, the ceiling is quite nice. Nakos, good to see you. NPC 007 says, Jerome Powell is clueless. So NPC 007, I'm not sure if you were on the live stream last night, but we've been talking about Dan Tapiero, right? So Dan is a very notable fund manager on Wall Street, got his start working under very famous portfolio manager Stan Druckenmiller. And he would agree with your thesis that Jerome Powell is clueless. However, Bill Ackman actually made an appearance on CNBC yesterday. I thought he gave a very well-informed interview, so if you want to check that interview out, if you type !Ackman in the chat, it will drop the link to the Bill Ackman interview. And Ackman is essentially saying he's giving the Federal Reserve credit here. They think they're going to raise rates all the way to 4% and hold them there for about a year, year and a half. And he doesn't think the Fed will take its foot off the gas unless there's material data that comes out that says inflation is cooling, right? It's not just going to take one print of the CPI coming down a little bit for the Fed to take its foot off the gas. You're going to need to see some serious demand destruction here. And the good news is this. Today, crude oil absolutely fell off a cliff. Talk about getting hammered. Crude absolutely fell off a cliff today. If you want to look at the crude oil futures contract that trades under the ticker symbol CL, it's trading at $82 a barrel now. Now, obviously, that's good for the headline CPI number. Not going to do too much for core CPI, as that excludes the very volatile food and energy. The number one thing that's going to affect core CPI, this dog is fantastic here. Check this out. Let me zoom in on this dog. Beautiful. 10 out of 10 on the dog. Love the color scheme. Love its personality as well. But the thing that's really going to do it for core CPI is if we see rent prices, or as they call it in the CPI, shelter prices come down materially, as well as wage pressures come down. So here's some additional good news. Well, it may not be good news depending on which side of the aisle you're on, but the average rate on the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is 6% now, about 100%, or about 300 basis points higher than it was this time last year. So I think that's going to put some severe pressure on housing. So the good news is, if you guys are in the market for a single family home or something like that, I think in Q1 of 2023, I think you're going to not only get some good prices, but some pretty good bargaining power here. So just as a little bit of a survey here, out of curiosity, how many of you that are watching this stream right now are either in the market to purchase a property, either for your personal residence or an investment property? I'd love to know, just out of curiosity, how many of you in the chat are actually in the market of looking, and maybe you've just been sidelined because prices have just been going gangbusters and they have not really been coming down as of yet. But I think you're going to be quite pleased as we make our way into 2023. I think we're going to see some cooling here in the housing sector. Okay, so Roger Fitz is like, Tom, I'm in the market. Fully Mindful Channels is me. Hey, Bob Lee says, I own rentals. Awesome, Bob. So Bob, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. I know that people value their anonymity, but how have your rentals been performing, and have you been raising rents? And a second question to that, a little bit of follow-up question for you, Bob, is, has your decision to raise rents been impacted by a potential rise in your property taxes? Hey, Sonia C says, hey Tom, I'm in the market to buy. Awesome. Matt Turner says, I'd like to live in Chinatown or buy something in Chinatown. Awesome. Hey, Anchovy says, Tom, I love your channel. Fairly new here, but I love the business talk and the other interesting topics. Well, thank you, Ann, for being here. I appreciate it. Nakos is hoping for a housing price drop. It's ridiculous here in Southern California. Yeah, so it's interesting that almost everybody in the chat is saying that they're in the market. Hey, running at altitudes is property taxes going up. Oh, I got hammered. My property taxes went up. I'm gonna have to increase my rental rates. Now, I do Airbnb, so I'm probably just going to ratchet that up a little bit, but I also have an update for you guys on that, but we may save that for another stream. I have an interesting business idea that I'm going to start, and I'll let you guys know about it. Hey, Duta says, hey Tom, I want to buy with mortgage rates so high, it doesn't help even if home prices are going down. Yeah, well, I think if you're very well capitalized, I think this could be a pretty decent opportunity. But I think the first step is you're going to see homes sitting on the market a lot longer. Right now, I'm not predicting a crash. I don't think the housing market's going to necessarily crash. But what I think is going to happen is the average home that used to sit on the market for 2 weeks and get multiple offers, all of those homes are probably not going to get multiple offers, and they're probably going to sit on the market for probably 180 days. Right now, it just depends on how well capitalized those sellers are. Do they really want to sell, and how motivated they are to sell? Because as of right now, even if you manage to sell your property in this environment, rents are still pretty elevated, right? So even if you were to sell your home or your investment property, still right now it's like, where are you going to go? Because rents are so crazy. But I think that's going to cool as well. Wendy England says, I will never be a landlord ever again. Bob says, Tom, no homestead exemption yet in Miami. So I do, but it kicks in when you first sign up. It kicks in the year after. So I got 1 year of tax increase. Matt Turner says, are you selling? Am I selling? No, never. So my strategy with real estate is I just accumulate. Well, I've only done one deal so far, but no, I want to accumulate a portfolio of real estate and never sell it, because real estate has some very fantastic tax advantages, and it is a good way to supplement income in retirement, I think. So let's say if you're nearing the age of retirement and you've accumulated 100 doors throughout your investing lifetime, well, that rental income is going to do wonders to supplement your retirement, right? All right, we are back out into civilization. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the inside of Grand Central Station. Hey, anonymous says never be a landlord in New York City. People think you can make all this money, but it is further from the truth. If you want to get into real estate, you should buy a REIT. Okay, so anonymous thinks that you should purchase real estate investment trusts. Interesting. Yeah, so I can back you up there a little bit. But first, speaking of Bill Ackman, I have a lot of respect for Bill Ackman. This is Pershing Square, and Bill Ackman is the CEO, founder of Pershing Square Capital Management. Once again, he did do a pretty interesting interview yesterday on CNBC. He thinks the Fed is going to hold rates steady. Continue to increase interest rates and hold them steady around 4%. So once again, if you want to check out that interview, ! Ackman in the chat. But I think one of the struggles with real estate in New York is we have very, very high property taxes here. Okay, especially if you want to buy out on Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk County, very, very high property taxes. So just to give you an idea, as I was looking for deals, right? So I did a deal in Southern Florida. I was also looking on Long Island, right? In Lindenhurst, in Massapequa, Belmore and the like, those particular neighborhoods, which I like. However, any house that was, $700,000 or a duplex around that vicinity all came with a property tax bill around 20 grand. Now, I'm no math wizard, but you just do the math on that. If you're paying 20 grand a year in property taxes, to be conservative, let's say you're paying 15 grand in property taxes a year. Well, what's the point of purchasing a home, especially if you're not going to be, earning cash flow from the property? Let's say if you just want to buy a single family home on Long Island to raise kids in. Well, in 30 years, you've eroded all of your equity. You've had 100% equity erosion in that deal because you've paid about the same amount in property taxes, right? So how is that an investment? It's essentially just like you're leasing the land from the government. Now, if you want to, if the deal cash flows, then I'd say do it. But just know that you're gonna, have a hefty, property tax bill every year, especially if you buy in Nassau or Suffolk County. Almost every single property I was looking at had a tax bill between $15,000 and $22,000 a year. That's after you turn the lights on. That's after you pay the water bill. That's after you do any repairs on the property. Then they bang you with 20 grand bill a month. 20 grand property tax bill a year. I can't do it. As a small business landlord, it's very difficult to operate in that environment. It's still doable. I love New York. I love Long Island, don't get me wrong. But it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Hey, Cynthia Brooks. Cynthia, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. We just did a little bit of a walk through Grand Central. Looked beautiful tonight, by the way. Hey, David is here. David Pershing says, I just hit the like button, Tom. Thank you, David. I trust you had a good Labor Day weekend. Yeah, Penelope's like, that's more of a liability. Anchovy says the United States may need 7.5% unemployment to curb inflation. What are your thoughts? I actually think that may be spot on. Well, I'll give it to you this way. So you guys know the past couple streams we've been talking about Paul Volcker. And Paul Volcker, the reason why I've been stressing so hard on former Fed chairperson Paul Volcker, because he was the man that was in charge of killing inflation during the early 1980s, right? This is the Yale Club, by the way. I'm not sure if anybody's ever been in this building. I've never been in. I'd love to go. If any of you in the chat are, anybody in the chat here is a member of the Yale Club, I would love to accept your invitation. I'd love to be a guest here. Walk around, grab some dinner, I don't know. Just kidding. But the reason why we were sort of hammering so hard on Paul Volcker is because he was tasked with in March, I think March of 1980, inflation was right around 14.8% in the United States. And Paul Volcker had to bring interest rates to 20%, causing about 10% unemployment in order to get inflation back down to 3% or 3.5%. So many people argue now that if the unemployment rate is at 3.5%, well, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's actually not true. I think the unemployment rate's at 3.7% now, because after this last round of economic data, the labor force participation rate actually went up. There was about an influx of roughly 600,000 people into the labor force participation rate, pushing up the unemployment rate to about 3.7%. So if we want to bring inflation back down to the Fed's 2.5% target, well, that would pretty much imply like a 7% unemployment rate, right? So that may be right. That may not be crazy. Now, I think Wall Street is split down the middle here. And a lot of people that I respect and listen to on both sides think that Fed Chair Jerome Powell is doing too much. He shouldn't be tightening interest rates, or he shouldn't be raising interest rates. He shouldn't be doing quantitative tightening because he's already created this massive amount of demand destruction, which is a good point. But there's other people that says, look, we need to start to normalize interest rates. You got to start to raise interest rates, and you got to do quantitative tightening, because if you don't, inflation could continue to run rampant. And what we've seen, so we're on Park Avenue, everybody, by the way. So 46th Street and Park. So here was the argument, right? You had 50% of Wall Street that thought, hey, the Fed is going to pivot. When Fed Chair Jerome Powell comes out and gives his speech at Jackson Hole, he's going to pivot. He's going to cave in. And he didn't cave in. And the reason why he didn't cave in and pivot is because what's the difference between 2022, which is right now, and 2018 and 2015? So the Fed did pivot in 2015. The Fed did pivot in 2018 in Q4 because inflation was 2.5%. The market bottomed on Christmas Eve in 2018. I remember I was trading it. The market bottomed on Christmas Eve. It was crazy. We had this massive capitulation. Market was down, I think 3%. I think the S&P was down 3% that day. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Fed pivoted, we rebounded on a V bottom to new all-time record highs. But the Fed could afford to pivot back then because inflation was 2.5%. They can't afford to pivot this time because we just got a CPI print of about 8.5%, down from 9.1. So I think until we see the CPI come back down and inflation come back, I don't think the Fed's going to pivot, which is probably going to lead to higher unemployment. It's probably going to lead to potentially lower stock prices, or maybe just a choppy market. Or maybe a lot of these stocks, especially a lot of the SaaS stocks, software as a service stocks, maybe they've already priced in these rate hikes. Who knows? We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. Hey, everybody, we got Manny Explorers. What's up? Manny, good to see you. We are on Park Avenue. We are actually overlooking the 432 Park Building, which is right here. Looking beautiful tonight. So line sync, I'm not sure why we're filming in 720p. It should be 1080. Maybe you have to refresh your screen. I'm not sure. Maybe it's my fault though. Everybody, right here on the corner of East 47th Street and Park is going to be the brand new JP Morgan Chase building. So this is where Jamie Dimon and his crew will be. Looks to be an absolutely beautiful, beautiful building. They just redid the entire lobby here too. Looks quite nice. Hey, Dolly Girl Twins is here. Good to see you, Dolly Girl Twins. Always a pleasure to have you here. I see E says, hey Tom, good evening. Good to see you, E. Lex S, welcome, welcome. Somebody says, pay a visit to Blackstone. All right, so originally on the stream, we're gonna walk all the way up to Bloomberg. I think Bloomberg has a very, very unique looking office. I really appreciate the architecture of that building. But on the way to the Seagram Building, I think adjacent to the Seagram Building is the Blackstone offices. So we'll take a look at Mr. Steven Schwartzman and gang. But if you guys are enjoying tonight's live stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and hit the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami, and we'd love to have you here for those streams. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Hey, Super Turk says, hey Tom, I'm planning on moving to New York for work. What part of New York is best for a family? I'm gonna throw out a particular neighborhood. I'm gonna say Park Slope. So Park Slope is a little pricey. Hey, Meep is here, says, I love your streams, Tom, thank you for it. Well, thank you for joining. This is a pretty cool ride here. What do you guys think about this? So Park Slope is a very nice neighborhood. It's in Brooklyn. It is right next to Prospect Park. I actually used to coach soccer there, Prospect Park. But Park Slope is very nice. I think it's a nice family community. You know, it's not the hustle and bustle craziness of Manhattan. Maybe I would also say Forest Hills. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but Forest Hills is in Queens. That's also a pretty nice neighborhood. It's a little bit of a hike to the city, but I don't know. I tend to like Park Slope. I think it's very nice. Maybe a little bit pricey, but then again, I'm not going to assume what your budget is, but definitely I would say those two neighborhoods are quite nice. So here is the Cause, very famous Cause. I get these in my building, but in black. Hey, somebody says my son just moved to Park Slope. Awesome. Amazing neighborhood there. Very fun neighborhood too. So really quick, everybody, here's my favorite neighborhoods in Brooklyn. I would say number one is probably Greenpoint. I actually used to live in Greenpoint back in the day. So Greenpoint, Brooklyn's quite nice, very nice. Then I would say Red Hook, and then Park Slope. Maybe in that order. But Brooklyn's very nice. You know, you'd be surprised at just how far Brooklyn has come over the past couple of years. I mean, some areas of Brooklyn are more expensive than Manhattan, much more expensive. But this is my favorite building right here. This is the Seagram Building right here. Stephen James says, hey Tom, good evening from Chandler, Arizona. Good to see you. This lobby is pretty cool too. Holy Palmolive. Sonia C says, Tom, are you Italian? Yes, about 50-50. I am the very stereotypical Irish-Italian. Family is from Long Island. Beautiful church here, love it, 10 out of 10. Hey, MJ Capital says, hi, here we are again. Have a great night and good work. Thank you so much, MJ Capital. MJ Capital, hopefully you had a fantastic Labor Day weekend and you are ready for the office, back to work. You know, I noticed something because I briefly stopped by the office here at 430 Park Avenue, and I noticed a lot more employees back to the office. So we've been covering this quite a lot in the stream. So a lot of the investment banks like Goldman Sachs has now authorized all of their employees back to the office. This is Raymond James. And essentially the consensus on Wall Street is, look, it's time to come back to the office. Bill Ackman was on CNBC. He was asked, are you bringing your employees back? He's like, yes, Pershing Square. Everybody's going to come back to the office, but we're going to be smart about it, right? If you have a major event that your kid is, graduating from middle school or college or something like that, well then, yeah, you could take off and you could work from home. If you're sick, if you're not feeling well, yeah, don't come into the office, no big deal. So I think everybody, and we talked about this already, but I think if you are very early on in your career in investment banking, even in tech sales, software sales, I would strongly advise you to get in the office, right? To build those relationships, get the face time in. If you're like a managing director or something like that, maybe you can afford to give a little bit of pushback and say, look, I'm an MD, I've been here 30 years. If you want to push me out, fine, I'll just work somewhere else. You're not as replaceable as maybe an analyst, right? So if you're a first or second year analyst, even an associate, maybe you want to get in there, get that face time, build out your network. To tech sales, one of the best decisions I ever made was being in the office earlier than anybody else, staying later than anybody else, and really paying attention to who the heavy hitters were in the office, right? So who were the account executives, or the enterprise account executives that were blowing out their quotas. You want to get to know them. You want to model their behaviors so you can build your own behaviors. And I think that's how you build success over time, right? I think if you're a young person just coming out of college, I think it's going to be very hard for you to build. Fantastic song, by the way. I'm not sure if anybody heard that. You guys listen to some fantastic tunes. Love that. I think it's going to be very hard for you to build a network if you're behind a Zoom screen, right? You got to be in the office. Speaking of office, this is East 51st Street and Park Avenue, my favorite building in the entire city, the Seagram Building. My absolute favorite. Hey, DJ A-Rose here. What's up, DJ? This is Tom. I work at one of the big firms. I have no need or desire to go back to the office on a daily basis. Yeah, I guess it just depends on what you do, right? A lot of my buddies that are like software engineers are like, why do I need to go to the office? No point. So I agree. I think if you're as productive working from home as you are in the office, then yeah, I'd say go ahead, knock yourself out. But if you're in a client-facing position, like if you're an account executive, you have to go on appointments, or an enterprise account executive where you have to do, corporate strategy, things like that. I don't know, I think it'd be a little bit hard to do that remotely, at least for me, speaking for myself. But hey, Juan Vasquez. Juan, what's up? Long time no see, Juan. Since I moved from LA to Vegas and work 100% remote, I am still on call. But I went from a small... Ooh, the chat is going crazy here. I went from a small office and a small apartment to a huge house. Yeah, you definitely get a lot more bang for your buck in Vegas, right? I don't know if I'd ever last though there. I think I would have a really hard time living in Las Vegas, just because it's too dry. It's just too hot and dry there. All right, we're going to take a quick pit stop at the Seagram Building, and then we're going to head all the way up to Bloomberg. I love Bloomberg's office. I think it looks fantastic. So we'll check that out. But here we are, Seagram Building. Hey, Tom Barry says, I'm from Vegas as well. Awesome. Ali says, why is this your favorite building? Well, because they built the building very, very far away from the street. And there's these two amazing fountains here. So I'll show you. As you walk up on the Seagram Building, you have this amazing, almost like park area here. And you have a fantastic view of the city. I think for the main reason that the building is built so far back away from the street. You can see the One Vanderbilt building here. Very unique skyline in New York. And this is my personal favorite. You have a direct line of sight to the 432 Park Avenue building. Hey, Matt Turner says, Tom, have you ever been inside? Yes, so I have. I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell you guys again. So in the Seagram Building, there used to be a company called Serve Corp. Now, Serve Corp, oh, this is, or Blackstone. So there used to be a company in the Seagram Building called Serve Corp is a competitor of WeWork. Right, and if you've been watching the streams, maybe over the last couple weeks, we've been talking about Adam Newman, his big $350 million funding round with A16Z. We sort of went into some persuasion tactics there. But Serve Corp is very similar to WeWork, where you could rent out sort of like fractional office space, so not like a huge office space, but you could rent like a little desk. Oh my gosh, you know, Seagram Building's my favorite building in the city. A Serve Corp just opened up, and I was gonna pay, I think, about $690 to rent a desk right there. It had a pretty nice view. And then COVID-19 hit. I don't wanna say went out of business, but that particular location closed down. And I think they just opened up a brand new location in the World Trade Center. So One World Trade. So I think there's only one Serve Corp location in New York now, or in the city, which is at the World Trade Center. But yeah, I mean, that's the only time I've been in there, is just to tour that specific office space. Oh, you guys think there's an audio issue? Yeah, so I'll get rid of the mic. I think I gotta get a new mic. I think my mic has gone through the gauntlet here. What about now? I removed the microphone, so maybe we're a little bit better now. Let me know. Matt Turner's like, do you have a car? I do not have a car. So sometimes I work out of this building right here, 430 Park Avenue. So I work right here sometimes. Very nice building. Yeah, Billy says, Tom, I thought the best part about Adam Newman's interview with Sorkin was when he said he wanted to apologize for Tim Cook for doing too much talking when they met. Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Newman has definitely done some much needed maturing, right? You know, he is I will tell you with exact certainty, that guy is a master salesperson. If there's anybody that you want to tap on the shoulder to help you raise money, or to help you tell a story, it's him, right? Regardless of what you think about the guy, right? I know he's a very controversial figure, but if you watch that particular interview, with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Adam Newman, you will witness a spectacle of textbook sales framing. How to frame a sale, how to control a conversation. He is a master at persuasion, a master at framing. Yeah, I think that was a fantastic interview. I agree. Yeah, Jason B., I'm not too sure when the vessel or the Hudson Yards will open. I'm not too sure. This building is quite nice too. I've taken some standalone videos here. Hey, Andreas A., good to see you. Hey, Judy Loveday is here. Good to see you, Judy. Welcome. So I would like to note that on Monday, we got some news out of the deal via CVS and a company called Signify. So we've been talking about this deal for a long time. So CVS has agreed to acquire Signify for about $30.50 a share in an all-cash deal valued at $8 billion. Signify's model is based on an analytical platform used by doctors and caregivers that go into patients' homes equipped with iPads, smart devices that allows for assessment of patient needs, and it could also connect those patients with follow-up services. So I think this is a really good deal for CVS. You know, we've been talking about how bullish I am on home health care in general. And I think one of the strongest industry trends of the next 10 years is the expansion and the growth of home health specifically. So I think this is a good deal. We'll talk about it a little bit. Looks like something's going on here. Hope everything's all right. Bruce Wayne. Hopefully that's not the issue. Hey, Mark Francis 786. This is home health growth for sure. We have an aging population. Yeah, you know, we were talking about some CDC statistics here, and the fastest sector of our population growth. Oh my God, that was a massive rat. The fastest population growth is 85 plus. The second fastest is 65 plus. So if we think about the future of healthcare, you know, I've worked selling software and hardware and traditional telecom. Here's one of those, what are these called? We're supposed to kill these guys, I think. I didn't want to do that, but I think we have to. I've been working in the home healthcare industry for quite a while, either facilitating and selling electronic visit verification software, traditional telecom, wireline, you name it, devices that these home health aides actually go to the patient's homes. They can clock in and out remotely. They could do all of their wireless forms. So I know just how much of an explosive industry this is. And I think for good reason too, Because if we think about an aging population, do you think that seniors would rather age in a nursing home or a hospital? Or do you rather think they would want to age with dignity and retire from the comfort of their own home? And I would argue it's probably the comfort of their own home. And in order for us to make sure that that happens, we need to come up with creative ways or solutions to lower the hospital remittance rates. Wow, check out this building. This is one of my favorites too. So one of the things that you'll notice in home healthcare, or if you're familiar with it, is they'll track how frequently a patient is admitted back to the hospital. And what we're trying to do right now is to deploy specific remote patient monitoring tools so we can send a patient particular updates to administer medication. Maybe they're a diabetic. We could send them reminders to take their insulin. Because a lot of the times, if you look at the data, the reason why these patients are unfortunately going back to the hospital are for very, very trivial things that could be fixed, right? Maybe they just forgot to take their high blood pressure medication, right? As you age, you become more forgetful. So if you can deploy these RPM tools in the home that can monitor you 24/7, 365, if it detects that, one of your particular vitals are out of whack, it'll send you a notification to administer the appropriate medication, thus lowering those remittance rates to the hospitals. And that's going to save not only taxpayers a lot of money, but insurance companies. What would you rather pay? $45 a month for a remote patient monitoring solution? Or do you want to pay $13,000, sometimes more, for a one-night stay in a hospital? I think we could all agree on which one we'd rather do. So I'm very, very bullish home care, home health care specifically. I think there's going to be a lot of innovation, and with that innovation, most importantly, it's going to make the patient's experience that much better, and that's what we're after here. So, Greg Alexander. This is where we going now. We're gonna go see Bloomberg. I think I actually just passed him. I think I actually have to walk back. I think I went up one block too far. So we'll cross over. We'll get it done, no worries. So this is outside of the Bloomingdale's. Hey, Andy is here. Good to see you, Andy. Andy is joining us from South Korea. Good to see you. So in conclusion, I think that CVS Signify deal is a pretty big deal. I think Amazon made a bid for them as well. We've been seeing Amazon try to make a huge push into healthcare with their acquisition of PillPack. So, as we talked about cybersecurity today being a huge growing total addressable market, healthcare is massive. Hey, Line Singh, good to see you. From the UK, welcome. Renee is here, says, hey Tom, I'm a senior and I think that's a really great idea. Yeah, Renee, at the end of the day, a lot of the home healthcare agencies that I work with, you'd be surprised at just how many of their patients do not have any surviving family members, unfortunately, right? So they don't have anybody to take care of them. So oftentimes this forces elderly people into nursing homes and assisted living facilities where that can be a huge cost, and maybe they don't want to do that. So I think easy access to home health care is going to be a pretty big game changer down the line. And I think technology can improve a lot of that. Just think about this efficiency here. Imagine if, your particular remote patient monitoring device that could connect to multiple peripherals in your home. And it does do this, by the way. It could then take that data and upload it to the cloud, where your primary care physician can see all of that data in real time. So maybe if there is a problem or an anomaly in that data, your primary care physician can schedule a call with you remotely. So instead of having the patient come all the way into the doctor's office, maybe on that little remote patient monitoring device, you could do a two-way teleconferencing call with your primary care physician to say, hey, we've noticed some of your, pulse oxygen levels are, in an abnormal pattern during this time of day. Let's try to figure out why that is. Are you stressed? Are you staying up late watching TV? These are just examples, right? So I think anything we could do to deploy technology to be proactive is going to save a lot of people's lives. But everybody, we are here at Bloomberg, one of my favorite buildings. Although I don't think they enjoy filming here, but this is the beautiful Bloomberg offices. We'll do a quick lap through here. Look at how unique it is. Hey Marcelo, we are walking to Bloomberg. That's where we are. Very unique. We'll cross the street so you guys can get a better look. So here we are at Bloomberg headquarters. What do you guys think about the building? Do you like the uniqueness of it? Do you not like it? What are your thoughts here? Hey, Rex A is here. It's a very cool building. Yeah, I think it's pretty unique. One of my favorites. Hey, my pal Chris Beeman is here from the one and only Arizona. Good to see you. Dolly Girl Twin says this tech already exists. Yeah, and I sell a lot of it. I sell a lot of it. 9-2. Some of you say too much glass. Hey, Pond viewers, says Tom, you're 100% correct about the home healthcare, which is a big issue here in the UK. There must be a huge opportunity going forward with Apple Watches, etc. Yeah, I agree. Apple's also making a big push into healthcare too. I'm glad we came up this way. We very, very rarely get to see the Upper East Side sort of area, so it's nice. But if you look all the way down here, this is 220 Central Park South. It's one of the very famous buildings on Billionaires Row here. Cindy Foley says I like the more traditional. Good to see you, Cindy. Hey, 980 Music says, good morning, everybody, my lovely friends. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. This is now Lexington Avenue. A lot of traffic on Lexington, too. Hey, Ryan Royals here. What's up? This is very cool Bloomberg building. Are there people working this late? Yeah, I would assume there's probably some analysts, things like that. Maybe a lot of the media guys are working there too. Destructionist is here, says, hey, is the Empire State Building lit up? Yes, supposedly the Empire State Building is lit up tonight for the Brazilian independence. So big shout out to all of our Brazilian viewers for Brazilian Independence Day. So tomorrow on the live stream, everybody, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Zscaler's earnings report. So stay tuned for that. Hey, Mark Francis 076, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate it very much. Your generous donations help keep these live streams going. Thank you so much. Hey, Marcelo says, thank you, my bro. Hey, Marcelo's from Brazil. Well, happy Independence Day, my friend. Thanks for being here, Marcelo. Appreciate it. So now we're gonna head towards Central Park South. Okay, so in a minute here, you're gonna be able to see the very famous Plaza Hotel. Hey, NMB 045 says, Tom, I saw a documentary once doing a tour inside the Bloomberg building. Wow. NMB 045, if you have the link, feel free to drop it in the chat. Check this out. A lot of steam here. Crazy. This is Park Avenue. We're back on Park. Hey, David Kish says hello from sunny New Mexico. Good to see you, David. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I think it looks cool. That steam must be hundreds of degrees. It's loud too. I don't know if you guys could pick that the audio up, but it's loud. Hey, Kish S says hello from Philly. Good to see all of our friends from Philly. So just to quickly touch on a topic we covered today, we already covered it for the people who are joining a little bit late. We talked about the manufacturing PMIs that came out earlier in the week. So the ISM manufacturing numbers came in at around 52.8%. So this is the first month in over a year where we didn't have deceleration in the PMIs. And the PMIs you could use as a leading indicator for the economy, right? As I always like to say, I think best practice is to, create an Excel model or just punch in the PMI manufacturing numbers into an Excel spreadsheet so you could actually chart the curve, as I like to call it, or the trajectory of the PMIs. And what you'll notice is the PMIs often lead the general market, be it via the S&P 500, the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones Industrial Average either down or higher. So if you've noticed if you notice back in back in October of 2021, that is when we had a big top in the PMIs, right? So in October, the PMI numbers came in roughly at about 60. Then in November, they declined to about 59. December, they declined to about 58%. And if you'd notice, we had the top in the S&P 500 in January. So as the PMIs roll over, so goes the market. And I think a lot of people interpret the PMI numbers in the incorrect way. So if you want to follow along, if you type !PMI in the chat, it'll drop those numbers. Or maybe it was !ISM. I forgot which one I put it. But usually people will say, okay, if the reading is above 50, that means the manufacturing sector of the US economy is expanding, so that means everything is good. That's not the full story. That's not the full case. And the reason for that is because you need to look for deceleration, right? So if you were having PMI prints of 60, and now we've had an absolute collapse in the manufacturing sector all the way down to 52%, well, that's huge deceleration, and there's no surprise why the S&P 500 has rolled over with that. But the good news is this was the first month in over a year where the PMIs did not decelerate, but they actually held steady and matched last month's numbers. This is the Plaza Hotel, by the way. So is it possible that we are just starting a trend where the PMIs will now turn around and trend in the upward direction? If that's true, it's a pretty high probability that maybe the market is nearing a bottom, maybe. Or is this just a one-off and the PMIs are going to continue to roll over? Well, I think we'll have to keep our eye on it a little bit longer. You know, one data point doesn't make a trend, but I think it's progress. But now we are at the flagship Apple store here at 5th Avenue on this beautiful night. I think it's very fitting to come to the Apple store tonight. Obviously, we had Apple's big iPhone 14 release tonight, or earlier in the day. Now, I missed it because I was at work. I was so busy today, but supposedly there's some interesting features in this new iPhone 14. I'll give you guys a brief look into the Apple store. Sort of like you walk down into the core. Very interesting here. Hey, Paul is here. Says, I discovered these streams in the last week. They are really cool, different, and interesting. Nice combo of New York City and financial information. Well, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure to have you join in on the chats. Hey, photos from around New York. What's up? This is the iPhone 14. Seems cool. So these are like little portals into the store. All right, let's continue on our walk. Hey, Wendy England's like, I see phones. Dusty Cole's cool shot. Good to see you, Dusty. So let's walk down 5th Avenue. And then we're going to cut over to 6th. So the good news is you guys will be able to see all of the buildings on Billionaires Row. Thought travels, says Tom, the iPhone 14 Pro, even heavier than the 12 Pro, so I'm disappointed. 12 Pro pulls my shorts down. So that's exactly why I got the iPhone 13 mini. You know, I think I'm over the phase where I wanted an extremely large size screen. I think the smaller screen size is a little bit more economical maybe. So here we are in New York's 5th Avenue, 57th Street. You'll be able to see the Trump Tower here in just a minute. Hey, Jim is here. It's his first time commenting. Thanks for the great content, Tom. And thanks for showing off the place of my birth. A long time ago, the greatest city on earth. Hey Jim, thank you for your comment, my friend. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Hey, Biz is like, Tom, I thought I was the only guy with the iPhone 13 mini. Oh my gosh, that's Chris. I won't say hi to him. I know that guy. He used to live outside my building for many years, Chris. So here we are at the main Trump Tower. Where they still have a lot of police presence here, NYPD. Hey, the Great Invisible says, hey Tom, I am watching you from Nigeria. It's almost 4 o'clock in the morning here. Hey, awesome, dude. That's fantastic. We have quite the international audience here. Love that. Hey, the RT 440. Good to see you. Brad's brain. What's up, Brad? So, Brad, did you hear about the breaking news of the massive ransomware attack that hit the Los Angeles public school system over the weekend? Supposedly, there were significant disruptions to their infrastructure. And I think this is a part of a growing larger trend of major cyber attacks. You know, last year, the University of California, San Francisco wound up paying $1.1 million to have all of their systems be decrypted or unencrypted from a ransomware attack. So I think this feeds or fuels the bull thesis for cybersecurity spending in general. You know, earlier in the stream, we were talking about, look, if I had to do it all over again, I would go into software sales, selling cybersecurity software. Because I think that's the one thing that's going to be constant. Right, as I always say, I think there's two distinct categories of products and services. Number one is a must-have product. A number two is a nice-to-have product. But I think cybersecurity is carving out its completely different landscape all on its own. And I think that is a particular called the requirement, is the new third tier, as I like to add. So I think cybersecurity spending is going to continue to balloon, and that should be a pretty nice secular tailwind for a lot of these companies. The RT440, this is great video as usual, Tom. Thank you, the RT440. This is St. Thomas Church. Check out the architecture here at St. Thomas Church, beautiful. Yeah, Shadow Shock, I heard about that. Yeah, teacher compensation is quite high on Long Island. FredEx with the 9.5. I agree, I think it's a solid 9.5. From across the street, FredEx is probably about a 10 out of 10. Shadow Shock says I went to school in New York City, grew up in Queens, and lived on Long Island. Very nice. Nassau or Suffolk? I tend to be a Nassau County fellow myself. So they did major construction on this building right across the street from the Museum of Modern Art, or MoMA, right here. And I think it's actually a steakhouse. Let's see, I'll show you guys. It almost looks like it's crystal. It almost doesn't even look like glass. Hey, Fenard says, hey Tom, I've been watching your videos recently. Thank you for your stunning New York City views and talks. Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate it very, very much. Elliott Wave Review says, hey Tom, why aren't you more bullish on real estate? Well, interest rates are going to go up, right? You know, as we talked about, that 30-year fixed rate mortgage is now 6%. As of yesterday, we cracked 6% on a 30-year fixed. That's a 100% increase from this time last year. So usually, as interest rates go higher, it puts pressure on housing. And I think we're already starting to see housing roll over here. This is a nice Brazilian steakhouse. So I think long term, I'm always a real estate bull, but you know, I think this time around, I think the Federal Reserve is gonna go far until they break something, right? Now, I'm not saying real estate is gonna crash or anything like that. All I'm saying is that there's probably going to be a cooling in the market, and hopefully that'll put some pressure on rents, right? Because the number one thing that the Federal Reserve wants to see, the number one thing, is they want to see shelter costs coming down, and number two, they want to see wage pressures come down as well. You know, crude oil got absolutely hammered today. So obviously that's going to do wonders with bringing the headline CPI number down. Not going to do too much for core CPI. But we'll keep our eye on it. I mean, I think, you know, we just did a little bit of a poll in the chat not too long ago about how many people in the chat were interested or looking at gaining more exposure to real estate in the upcoming year, and quite a few people said they were. Quite a few people said they're in the market for buying a home, maybe getting an investment property. So I think as the market cools and interest rates go up, I think there's going to be deals to be had. I think the buyer is going to have much more negotiating power. I think long gone are the days of multiple offers over asking. You know, I think there's going to be no waived, you know, sort of, or no contingencies, and waiving inspections. If you think about the environment we're coming out of, it was bizarre. I was hearing from people that were waiving their home inspection, which is like probably one of the worst things that you could possibly do in your life, just to win the deal. I mean, you never, ever, ever waive any inspections. That is rookie mistake number one. But we're making our way down near the Radio City Music Hall. Once again, if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you're new. We are standing outside the Nürburgring Building, and we usually do these live streams roughly 5 days a week between New York City and Miami. Hey, my friend Marcelo. Speaking of Marcelo, we are outside the UBS building. So Marcelo's daughter works here, an investment banker. Always good to see you, Marcelo. Thank you for being here. Marcelo, it is Brazilian Independence Day today. Hey, Retro says, what are your thoughts on the new Bank of America home loan? So I heard about that, but I'd like you guys to enlighten me about it a little bit more. I didn't do too much research into it because I just couldn't believe it. But supposedly, some of the banks, now allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not. One of my buddies sent me an article that said that Bank of America will be targeting specific mortgages, zero down. I forget what it was. Was it no credit check or something like that? To lower income, people in lower income communities to help them get into a home. So I'm not as well read on it as I should be, because I haven't had any time. But if the thesis is they're trying to bring back a lot of the stuff that they did during 2005 leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, I think it's an absolute horror show. I think it's an absolutely egregious idea. I think it's going to put a lot of people in bad situations. Here's just a little bit of a tip for everybody. Usually, generally speaking, anytime the government tries to put in place a program to help people, the program 9 times out of 10 winds up backfiring and crushing the exact people that they're trying to target to help. So I would just be cognizant of that. If anything, I think lending standards should be increasing, which, to be fair, over the course of the last 5 years, lending standards or underwriting standards for home mortgages have actually been quite high. Now, here's a little bit of a tidbit which I didn't really want to talk about tonight. I wanted to save this topic for tomorrow, but the biggest disaster that is brewing is in the junk bond market. But I wanted to dedicate an entire stream to this. But a lot of the defaults are picking up steam rather quickly here, folks, in the junk bond market. So, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Hey, Austin City Limits. Good to see you. Thank you for being here, Austin. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. But if you guys like what we talk about each night on the streams, if you scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and you'll be signed up for my free investing newsletter, where I cover the US equities markets, the housing market, fixed income. So if you want to stay up to date and read my equity research for free, just scan the QR code, punch in your email, we'll send it to you. But this is the best halal food in New York City right here. It's called Adele's Famous. It is by far the best. I've never been to a better spot than this 3-hour line. So, but I think it's worth it every now and then. But once again, if you scan the QR code, punch in your email, you'll be signed up to receive my free investing newsletter, where I will keep you guys up to date on my thoughts on the market. So a lot to come from that. Hey, Marcelo Gil, this is Tom. The Brazilian GDP in 2022 is expected to grow more than twice beyond what had been previously forecasted by the International Monetary Fund in April. Yeah, so I heard about that, Marcelo. You know what, Marcelo, that I wanted to touch on too tonight? I think I forgot. So we've been talking a lot about the Federal Reserve, obviously setting the tone for monetary policy. But tomorrow we're actually going to hear from the ECB, so the European Central Bank. We're going to hear from them. And the European Central Bank will announce its monetary policy decision. Now, if you look at the futures market, there's about a 60% chance, a 60% probability right now of a 75 basis point rate hike. So at the last meeting, they raised interest rates about 50 basis points. But the European Central Bank has kept interest rates negative. So they've been having negative interest rates. So now the interest rate, the benchmark, is 0. But if they raise interest rates 75 basis points tomorrow, that would bring the benchmark rate or the deposit facility above 0 for the first time in a decade to 75 basis points. So we're noticing this trend, right? It's not only our central bank here, the Federal Reserve, but it's central banks across the globe. I think we may be entering a liquidity issue here, guys. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. I think liquidity is drying up. You know, Morgan Stanley actually came out with a note talking about the same exact thing we were covering yesterday on the stream about the liquidity issue. Hey, Pond Viewer 12 says, that's spooky, Tom. A friend who's a very experienced venture capitalist has just sent me a link to the Wall Street Journal article on junk bonds and the impending credit crunch. Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the things I track a lot is the default rates in the junk bond market. And yeah, I think I don't really want to go into it too much tonight. I think it's important for me to dedicate an entire stream to this, which I think I'm probably going to do on Friday. But if you notice, so if we take a step back and we think about people are saying the quality is low. Yeah, I'm not sure why we're getting prorated down to 720p. Maybe you just have to refresh your internet. Because I think we're streaming in 1080p. But if you notice, the market caught a little bit of a bid today. And the reason for that is, look where the 10-year yield went today. The 10-year yield came down. So I tell you guys, if you just type in, tradingview.com, right? If you go to tradingview.com, and you can pull up a chart of the 10-year yield. Don't pull up the price of the bond. Track pull up a chart of the yield. And we had a little bit of a reversal in that US 10-year Treasury yield. And as we know, there's an inverse correlation between bond prices and yields. So as people buy bonds, yields go down, and as bonds sell off, yields spike. And that's one of the reasons why the 10-year US Treasury yield has been on a tear lately, is because the Federal Reserve hasn't been buying as many US Treasuries and putting a bid in the market. So I think there's going to be an interesting liquidity situation here coming up, which we're going to cover in the newsletter. I know I haven't put out a newsletter in a while, but we're gonna be back on track, and I have a lot of big plans for the newsletter. I'll also be having some guests coming on, writing some columns there as well. So just stay tuned. Hey, British Grey is here. Good to see you, British Grey. Thank you for joining. But team, we've already been streaming for almost 2 hours. My God, crazy. So we will call it a night. But the good news is we will be back tomorrow here at 8:30 p.m. So if you enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to join us again tomorrow live from New York City at 8:30. We will be streaming live again from Manhattan. If you enjoyed the stream tonight, everybody, leave a like on the video. Hit the subscribe button if you are new. And thank you for coming. I appreciate it. But we will be back live tomorrow. I promise you that. Once again, if you want to stay up to date on our newsletter, scan the QR code, punch in your email, and we'll see you tomorrow. So Marcelo, thank you so much. Sunshine After Rain. Roman Chid, thank you so much. Dusty Cole. Center Star, thank you so much for joining. Ibrahim Azam, XOXX Bob, thank you. Cynthia Brooks, Ann Chovy, FredX, all of our moderators, photos from around New York. Happy Brazilian Independence Day, XOXX Bob. Stephen, Gary, thank you so much. And to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere, and you just need to know where to look. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow, 8:30. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and make tomorrow a fantastic day. It is Thursday. Only 2 more days to go, my friends. Only 2 more days to go. Be safe, get some rest. We'll see you back here tomorrow.